Welcome to the third episode of our podcast's fourth season, Scary But True Campfire Stories, brought to you by Dudes Camping. Our goal is to share true stories of strange, supernatural, ghostly, and unexplained as we gather around the virtual campfire. Or maybe you are sitting around a real campfire right now. Maybe you have a strange but true story you'd like to share. Email us at dudescampingstories@gmail.com with your own Bigfoot, UFO, ghost, conspiracy, or just unexplained supernatural story, and we'll consider it for broadcast. Don't forget to visit us on YouTube and Facebook at Dudes Camping. The year 1958 marked a turning point for the Sasquatch story. It was when the quiet whispers from remote logging camps and isolated homesteads exploded into national and international headlines, forever changing how people viewed the elusive Bigfoot. But before that major shift, before the media frenzy and the waves of both doubt and strong belief, there was a compelling collection of encounters that deserve our close attention. These reports from before 1958 are more than just old records. They are crucial evidence supporting the creature's existence. Their importance comes from how pure and untouched they are. Imagine a time when most people had never even thought about a man-like ape living in North America. There was no widespread story, no common idea of a Bigfoot. These weren't people looking for fame, nor were they influenced by sensational news. Instead, they were ordinary individuals. Hunters, trappers, prospectors, and settlers, living their lives in the remote wilderness, suddenly faced with something utterly unexplainable. Crucially, these early accounts appeared completely independently. They were separated by years, even decades, and by hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles of wild land. A trapper in Alberta in the 1950s knew nothing of a prospector's terrifying encounter in the Pacific Northwest decades earlier, or of a pioneer's brief sighting in the Appalachian Mountains. Their stories stayed hidden in local records, forgotten newspaper clippings, or simply as terrifying personal memories, often dismissed or mocked by their communities. In fact, it wasn't until after the shocking events at Bluff Creek in 1958 that researchers driven by new curiosity began the hard work of finding these older, forgotten stories. Yet, despite this complete lack of connection, despite the huge gaps in time and distance, a remarkable consistency runs through every single one of these separate reports. The creatures are described in strikingly similar ways: immense, two-legged beings covered in dark, shaggy hair, with an eerie mix of human-like shape and raw power. Beyond just their looks, their reported behaviors, their silent, gliding movements, their occasional calls, their apparent intelligence, and their elusive nature are echoed across these independent accounts. This uncanny agreement, formed without any shared myths or media influence, serves as powerful proof. This consistency, born from isolated, unprompted observations, suggests something profound. These reports are not just products of imagination, mistaken identity, or shared cultural ideas. Instead, they paint a compelling picture of real encounters with a genuine, though extremely rare and mysterious creature. Before the legend became a phenomenon, before the name Bigfoot became common, ordinary people were already meeting the extraordinary. Their testimonies, untainted by expectations, offer a unique and compelling look into a hidden world, hinting at an ancient mystery that continues to walk among us, just beyond what we understand. The sighting by William Roe in 1955 remains a classic for many reasons. Not only was Roe an unimpeachable witness who was widely known to be trustworthy and reliable, but his report included a wealth of detail that is rarely found. Most people who encounter a Sasquatch are so surprised by the sudden confrontation that they fail to note details. Not so with Roe. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the creature of Micah Mountain.
You know, folks always ask me about it, even after all these years. The memory is as sharp as a fresh-honed axe, cutting through the fog of time. It was back in '55, October 22nd to be exact. I was only a middle-aged man back then, living in Alberta, Canada, but my roots went deep into the backwoods of Michigan. I was born there, raised with an innate sense of North American wildlife from the moment I could walk. After I got married, I spent several years in Canada, working as a trapper and a hunter. It was this life, this deep connection to the wilderness, that brought me to the area around Tet June Cache, Alberta, in the fall of 1955. A year earlier, I shot a magnificent black bear on the nearby Micah mountain, a truly impressive specimen. But this particular trip, this wasn't about a kill. This was more by way of a reconnaissance. I carried my hunting rifle with me, yes, but I wasn't really looking for anything to take down. I was alone, on foot, just enjoying the quiet solitude of the forest. My destination, if you could call it that, was an old abandoned mine I knew about. I figured I'd have a poke around the workings just to pass the time of day. It was about 3 p.m., the sun was beginning to descend, casting long shadows across the dense canopy of fir and spruce. The air had that amazing smell of pine and damp earth, the kind of scent that settles deep into your bones. I was moving slowly, cautiously, my eyes scanning the undergrowth, my ears straining for the slightest snap of a twig or rustle of leaves. The only sounds were the crunch of my boots on fallen leaves and the distant caw of a crow. I came to a small clearing, maybe 50 yards across, ringed by thick timber. It was a natural opening, probably where a particular large tree had fallen years ago and left a sun-drenched patch. I was just stepping out into the clearing when I saw it. At first, I took it to be a grizzly bear moving amongst the bushes on the far side. With the practiced ease of a hunter, I silently stepped back into the cover of the trees and squatted down to watch. At first, I could only see the top of the creature's head, then a furry shoulder as it moved about in the bushes. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a drumbeat in the sudden silence that had fallen over the woods. Every hair on my arms stood on end. Then the creature emerged into the clearing and stood up, and it was immediately obvious that it was not a bear. I was confused. I first took it to be a huge man in a fur coat. That was my initial, almost comical thought. Then I considered that perhaps it was an actor dressed up in a gorilla suit for a movie. But I hadn't heard of any movie company at work in this remote area, and the idea quickly dissolved. As the creature moved gently across the clearing towards me, I dismissed that notion entirely. It was bigger than any man I had ever seen, and it moved in a peculiar way, a strange, fluid grace that was unlike anything human. It was tall, well over 6 feet, maybe even 7, and wide, incredibly wide. Its shoulders were about 3 feet across, immense, its body covered in dark brown fur, about an inch or so long. It was like looking at a giant, hairy man, but not quite. Fear, raw and primal, coiled in my gut. But beneath the fear, there was something else. A profound, overwhelming sense of awe. The creature got to within 20 feet of me before it stopped. It then squatted down on its haunches, its immense frame settling with surprising ease, and began to eat leaves off a bush. Its arms were heavily muscled and long in proportion, reaching almost to its knees. Its hands, even from this distance, looked powerful, yet it handled the delicate leaves with a surprising gentleness. After a minute or two, the beast seemed to suddenly catch my scent. It stopped eating, its head slowly lifting. It looked around, its gaze sweeping the clearing, and then it fixed its eyes directly on mine, on the very bush where I sat hidden. My breath caught in my throat. Its eyes were small and black, more like those of a bear, but they held a spark of something else, something I couldn't quite place. Its face, where the skin around the eyes and mouth was bare of hair, was capable of expression, and when it saw me, the creature looked so utterly amazed that despite the situation, I couldn't help but grin. It was a moment of shared, silent astonishment. Then it shuffled back 4 steps and stood up. It didn't run, didn't charge. It simply stood there for a moment, its immense form silhouetted against the bright clearing, and then it walked off rapidly, glancing back over its shoulder at the bush where I sat hidden. In that instant, my hunter's instinct kicked in. This was a specimen, a truly valuable specimen. I raised my rifle, my finger finding the trigger, ready to shoot. But as the creature looked back at me, that spark in its small black eyes, that look of sheer amazement, it hit me. It wasn't just an animal. It was more. Killing this creature, I suddenly felt, would be more like murder. The thought chilled me to the bone, so I let it go. My rifle remained unfired. The creature stopped on the far side of the clearing, just before disappearing into the dense thicket. It tipped its head back and let rip with a call that was half laugh and half howl. It was an odd sound, guttural yet strangely melodic, and unlike anything I'd ever heard in the woods. Then it vanished into the trees. I thought that was the end of it, but a few minutes later I saw it again. It crossed a ridge about 200 yards distant, its dark form moving swiftly against the lighter backdrop of the sky. Again, it emitted its odd call, that strange half-laugh, half-howl, and then it was gone for good. I stood there for a long time after it was gone, the silence of the woods now deafening. My heart was still pounding, but the fear had receded, replaced by a profound sense of wonder and a touch of disbelief. Had I really seen what I thought I saw? My mind replayed every detail, trying to make sense of the impossible. According to my own written account, the Sasquatch had stood well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders about 3 feet across. I guessed its weight at around 400 pounds. I took it to be a female because it had a pair of large breasts and no obvious external male, well, you know. Its body fell straight from the shoulders to the hips, not curving in and out again as does that of a human, giving it a powerful, almost columnar appearance. It was covered with that dark brown fur, about an inch or so long, uniform across its body. The arms were heavily muscled and long in proportion, reaching almost to the knees, and the feet were large, about 5 inches across, with a gray-brown skin on their undersides. When it walked, it put its heels down first, but it seemed to glide along without the up-and-down bobbing of a man's stride, almost effortlessly. The creature's head was higher at the back than at the front, giving it a somewhat conical shape. Its nose was broad and flat, while the lips and chin jutted forward, creating a distinctive profile. Its ears were the same shape as those of a human, but its eyes, as I said, were small and black, more like those of a bear, yet holding that undeniable spark of intelligence. The skin around the eyes and mouth was bare of hair, allowing for a range of expressions. That moment when it looked at me and its face registered such profound amazement that I couldn't help but grin. That's a detail I'll never forget. I walked over to where it had been standing, hoping to find some trace, some evidence. The ground was soft, and there, clearly imprinted in the earth, were its footprints, large, flat, and distinctly human-like, but much, much bigger. They confirmed what my eyes had seen. This was no ordinary animal. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, my hunting forgotten. I walked back to my camp, my mind replaying every detail of the encounter, the way it moved, the way it looked at me, the quiet intelligence in its eyes. It wasn't a monster, not in the way people imagine. It was a creature of the wild, powerful and mysterious, but not malevolent. When I finally made it back to civilization, I knew I had a choice to make. Do I tell people what I saw, or do I keep it to myself? I knew the ridicule I'd face. People would call me crazy, a drunk, a liar. They'd say it was a bear, or a hallucination, or some kind of trick. But I couldn't keep it to myself. It was too important. This was a discovery, a glimpse into a hidden world. So I told my story, to my family, to my friends, to anyone who would listen. and just as I expected, most people scoffed, they laughed, they shook their heads. But some listened, some believed, and those are the ones who mattered. Over the years, I've heard other stories, other sightings, some similar to mine, some different. But the core of it is always the same: a large, hairy, bipedal creature, intelligent and elusive. They call it Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the hairy man. To me, it was simply the creature of Micah Mountain. All these physical features I described, they've been reported time and again by those who claim to have seen the Sasquatch. It gives me some comfort, knowing I wasn't alone in what I witnessed. I never went back to that exact spot, not to hunt anyway. I've been in those woods countless times since, but I've never seen another one. And part of me is glad. Some mysteries are best left undisturbed. But the memory, it stays with me. It's a part of who I am now. It taught me that there are still wonders in this world, things beyond our understanding, things that defy our neat little categories. It taught me humility and a deeper respect for the wild places. And sometimes, when the wind whispers through the trees and the air smells of pine and damp earth, I close my eyes and I'm back in that clearing, watching the creature of Micah Mountain turn its head, its dark, intelligent eyes meeting mine, and I know with absolute certainty that I was privileged to witness something truly extraordinary. It was the day the woods whispered my name and showed me a secret that changed my life forever. It wasn't just a sighting, it was an encounter with the untamed heart of the wilderness, a reminder that even in our modern world, there are still ancient mysteries waiting to be found, and I was lucky enough to find one.
Thanks for listening to Scary But True Campfire Stories, presented by Dudes Camping. Narrated by Matthew S. Newbold. Do you have a story that needs to be told? Email us at dudescampingstories@gmail.com with your scary but true story, and we'll consider it for broadcast. Please, hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this story, and leave a comment. It really does help us out. Until next time, we will see you around the campfire.